cheers and prayers to the girl creating here, and happy, blessed Thursday on this beautiful, beautiful sunny day that Lord has blessed you with. How are you? How are you doing on this beautiful, awesome Easter season? How are you doing? I'm just so bubbly because this is literally my 7th take. And I love doing these retakes because honestly it gives me such joy to just get myself pumped up for you all, and it gives me such energy. Even though I'm talking to a camera that doesn't talk to me back, it's just as fun to me. Flashback from 2020 in the midst of the lockdown, and I'm just sitting here curious to see how I would be like talking to a camera. It was so awkward. Pure awkward. Try it at home. If you think I'm lying, try it at home after watching this, of course. And I'm telling you, it's pure authentic awkwardness. But if you're a natural drama queen, fine. It's probably going to be like, psh, no worries. But for me though, it was very outside of my comfort zone. But here we are. So welcome back to the I was just gonna say Young Rosary. Welcome back to the Catholic Warriors Talk Show. On this new episode, I'm so blessed and so grateful to have you with me in this journey. I don't know who's watching this, but whoever you are, you're a blessed child of God. Always remember that, and thank you. So I hope you've been doing well on this beautiful Easter season, and definitely for your time is flying, because why? May is already around the corner, and I'm just sitting here like, are you joking me? Like, I'm just settling down to finally enjoy the beautiful weather. Like, yes, we did have humid weather here in Toronto, but like, it was just utterly cold suddenly after that. So I'm just sitting here like, okay, I'll just keep my jackets prepped in case. But anyways, Canada life, hashtag cold life. But anyways, without further ado, let's get started. My true words, Christ. I want to talk to y'all about practicing exterior humility. Yeah, that's a big one. Practicing exterior humility. Now, sit there and just think for a moment. Okay, practicing exterior humility. What is like the first mind thought that comes to your brain right now? Exterior humility. Probably you're just staring at me waiting for me to tell you. But I want to start off with the fact that we must receive God's grace in our hearts, because before we even think about what to do to practice exterior humility, we need the strength, we need the grace, we need everything in order for us to practice that out there authentically, right? Yes, if you are just the type that likes to put a facade and make everybody think that you're such an angel, wake up, because it's no joke. The fact that we will all, in various times, be called back home from God, we will face Judgment Day. And ultimately enough, that whole facade show is going to come to an end. And especially if you're convincing other people that you're doing it for God's glory and for God's kingdom, good luck with that. Because this life is a preparation for the next. This life is not for us to take lightly. Our lives is a preparation for us to constantly keep on glorifying God, even in the midst of storms, in the midst of times of uncertainty, even in the midst of like, you keep on praying for clarity and you're just not getting it, right? So that's the first thing. We must receive God's grace in our hearts first. But before we even do that, we must be empty vessels in order for us to fill our hearts with God. Because if we don't do that, then how are we going to make room for God in our life, in our hearts? How? Right? We must empty ourselves to then fill our hearts and our whole entire temple of God with His glory and His grace and His mercy and love and everything. Right? Because typically, if we live in the world and of the world, what are you going to fill your heart with? Self-esteem, pride, glory, vainglory, etc., etc. And ultimately enough, it's not leading to answering that universal call of holiness at the end of the day. If you really think about it, right? Typically, when it comes to practicing exterior humility, right? Use every instrument that we have as a way to glorify Him. Number one thing that we typically don't really think about in terms of utilizing is what? Social media, right? We typically just are the types to just scroll mundanely and like just waste 2-3 hours, and the next you know it's like 3 a.m. You're just sitting there like, what am I doing with my life? And again, in the process of all that, you typically tend to what? Compare your life with other people. And obviously it leads to this domino effect where it makes you doubt your life. It makes you doubt your purpose of your life. It makes you doubt your blessings as well too, right? So therefore, practicing exterior humility comes into play because why? Humility drives the enemy insane. Humility drives Satan away. Humility drives Satan insane because he hates it so much. So I'm telling you, the biggest combat against the enemy 100%, which I always love saying in all my episodes, is humility. And the first thing for us to do that is to practice that throughout our life. And how do we practice that? Is to always make room for God in our life constantly, starting within our heart. Because how are we able to radiate that to everyone around us and in the world if we don't start here? If you actually think about it. Yeah, for sure, it will be here, but it can always just stay here unless you allow God to bring it to your heart. A thought will always just stay a thought unless you actually put it to action by calling upon God's grace to place it into your heart. And that's something that's honestly a battle. Because why? The enemy will keep on playing mind games with you in your brain, making you doubt, making you question yourself, making you doubt your blessings, making you doubt certain signs that God's placing in your life. And you're like, And then you contradict that and completely go 180 and do something completely the opposite of what God's calling you to do, right? So knowing how wise, learned, generous, and noble you are, in order for you to know that, know how your life is molded by humility, modesty, and submission. Let me repeat that again. Knowing how wise, learned, generous, and noble you are is really knowing how your whole entire life is molded by humility, modesty, and submission. What do I mean by that is when it comes to living our life, right? These ranks, right, in terms of degrees or high ranking in society, those do not matter in the eyes of God. Yeah, you can be top notch, for example, even in a corporate world, if you're like a CEO or something. How would that actually matter in the eyes of God if you're actually not glorifying Him, if you're of that rank? How? Right? Yes, you can have all the wealth in the world. Yes, you can have all the ranks of this world. But how would that actually matter in the eyes of God at the end of the day? Yeah, you can make 6 figures today. Yeah, you can make 7 figures today. But who blessed you with that? Ultimately enough, God did. Yes, you worked hard for it. I get it. Probably got all your degrees and MBAs and everything for that. Or maybe not. But they are blessings from God. Right? So therefore, when it comes to striving for greatness, it doesn't always necessarily mean that that whole level of success is like the amount of wealth you have. Yes, you can have all the wealth we have, but you can be completely hollow inside. Yes, people look up to you and be like, oh wow, you're such a celebrity. But then in reality, It's just like, I'm empty, I'm depressed. What am I doing in my life? Excuse me. And luckily enough, typically, we see the examples of these from a variety of celebrities here and there. So that is why we gotta take it into place in our mind that, yes, you can have all the success of the world, but what about the success in perspective in terms of God's glory and kingdom? Right? So that's why when you're living in the midst of your life right now, constantly allow yourself to see your life with clear lens, knowing the blessings that you have. Yeah, you may have a job right now that you just don't like because maybe your coworker or your boss, or it feels mundane to you and you don't enjoy it. Or you actually enjoy your job right now. Think about the blessings that God has given you. Start there. After you enable yourself and your mind and your heart to keep on practicing exterior humility, start there. And you will see how your life has always been having God by your side. By your side, in your heart, leading you in certain different opportunities here and there, or leading you away from certain things that are just not best for you. It's totally, absolutely miraculous how God has his ways that completely exceeds our understanding, which ultimately enough humbles us because we don't see the bigger picture of your life. We only see what's just in front of us in that present moment, right? So that's why we must fill ourselves with God's glory, mercy, and grace in order for us to combat not filling ourselves with pride, vanity, and boast. Come on. We must not fill ourselves with that sense of pride of knowing that, like, yeah, I'm up here. It's all about me. God sees through your heart. And God has his ways of humbling you in his beautiful way that may not seem the best in your life, but in the end, it will ultimately work out. I have many stories to back that up, but I'm not here to tell them all because it's going to be like a 3-hour episode. But anyways, right, we must make an active effort to acquire virtue rather than acquiring honor, which brings contempt and shame. Remember that. Strive to have that activeness in acquiring virtue rather than acquiring honor. Because acquiring honor comes later. When you put God first, all that comes later on. Because really, you must allow God to increase and us to decrease. And it's hard. In the midst of persecution in this world, yeah, it's hard. People put you down like no tomorrow. People persecute you like no tomorrow. And yeah, it's tempting to cross that line and be like, forget it, I'm done. I'm walking out. But don't be that person to give up on God so easily. Yeah, times will get tough. Your faith will be tested. However, when your faith is tested, it is being more refined. And that's the best part that I love the most. Because it really enables you to be so in this uncomfortable state that gives you no choice but to trust God more. Of course, you have the free will. I get it. Okay. Yes, you have a choice, but ultimately enough, if you want to make the best choice, it's choosing God's way. Don't be that person to be like my way or the highway. No. God's way always. God's way always. Let that sit in your mind. God's way always. Not in the sense of like he's forcing you. No. God loves us. That's hence the free will, right? But allow yourself to know that God's will is always the best way. Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of questions to be asked, and you're just sitting there like, I need answers. Which, in that point, you have to just sit there and try to see everything that occurs around you. If you're praying for something right now, just be like, Lord, okay, I'm confused. I need your grace and your clarity, which is why I'm going to call the Blessed Mother Mary's help. And you'll get the clarity you need in time. In time. And I hate that feeling where you're praying for this clarity and you're just not getting it until like the moment you just stop thinking about it, just like there, and I'm like, what? Like, really? Trust me, God has a sense of humor. He's not just sitting there with a tally chart, be like, up, sit, tally, tick, tick. No, obviously, like I've never seen God face to face, but God shows himself through our life constantly. But are we looking? Are we trying to see God in our life, or we're just completely blind freaks and just refuse to, like ignorance? Think about it. How are you living your life today knowing that God's always working in your life? Right? So therefore, practicing exterior humility is really understanding your life as a whole so far, and seeing the different ups and downs in your life and how you've persevered through that. That humbles you so much. Yeah, there are times when you don't get it. You don't get what's going on, and you don't know what's going to happen next. But the fact that God pulled you through that will humble you to the extent that you will begin to practice exterior humility. Why? Because you are going to tell stories to other people saying like, yes, God has made a change in my life that I cannot keep it to myself, that I just gotta tell someone. And through that process, you become more humbled as time passes, right? So therefore, when it comes to practicing exterior humility, you gotta condition your mind to set things that are of above. Conditioning your mind to setting things that are of above. Not conditioning your mind to the things that are just on earth and temporary. Yeah, for sure, modesty, how you talk, and all, how you dress, and yeah, that comes with it. But we're talking about the true origin roots here, about practicing exterior humility. Because at the end of the day, you could be convincing people that you're doing this for God, but deep down, God's like, really? You can do better than this. Stop deceiving people. Right? It's really thinking about the origin of how to actually practice exterior humility. Otherwise, you can just tell us, okay, I'm going to be modest, I'm going to be like, hey. But what's the root of that? How do you even begin that process? You don't just do it overnight. And we can't do it alone. Right? We can never do anything alone without God's glory and God's power and strength. The more you try to do things on your own, good luck with it. Because ultimately enough, it will lead you to what? Self-destruction. Searching for temporary happiness. Searching for things that are just your temporary escape route. And that will just corrode your soul at the end of the day. Yep, definitely for sure. Following the journey of faith is not easy, I can admit. But the rewards are great. The rewards are definitely better than you can ever think for yourself. It's just a matter of being that humble submission. That humble servant. But what do we humans do? We are stubborn. We are impatient. We want to just show off what's perfect in our lives and just try to put on a facade that's just not authentic. Right? So therefore, when you condition your mind to set the things that are above, it enables you to what? Putting God first in the midst of storms of uncertainty, which I always love to talk about. Because I keep on reminding warriors of Christ that pray with me, at least. I give them the sense of little reminder that, yeah, definitely for sure, I can tell in the intentions they offer up, something's just a little bit of a struggle. But without asking details, I try to give them that little booster of like, you got this. God's not blind. God can see everything. God can see conversations that you can't hear. God can see things that you can't see. Think about that, and that truly will humble you. Because why? God will put you to greater glory if you only put him first. Yeah, for sure. You probably worked hard for where you're at now. But how did you get there? Like, really, how did you get there? How did those doors open up for you? Yeah, you're probably saying, yeah, connections, I know people. Yeah. But how did you get those connections? God opens doors when doors are shut. God shuts doors that need to be shut for better doors to open. It's true. It's true. So, ultimately enough, at the end of the day, how are you living your life for God today? Today. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, today, like right now. Because that in itself is a true practice of your exterior humility. It's really having that full examination, knowing that God has never left you at all. He's always there watching you. But are you allowing him to be part of your life? Yeah, for sure, you want to take up that self of like, I'm in control now. It's my life now. Trust me, I've heard various excuses. Like, oh, I don't have time. Or like, I'm not interested. Trust me, when people persecute you, they're not persecuting you. They're persecuting Jesus and God at the end of the day. Even Jesus said in the scripture to forewarn the apostles, okay? And now they're saints because they were true witness to God, to Jesus, his whole entire life. And that's a beautiful journey to see. But Jesus is always in the midst of all of us. But are we allowing ourselves to see that? Don't be that type to take your life into your own hands. It's not going to lead to greatness and glory. It will just be temporary happiness. Yes, it is tough, but you can do it. Why? Because you are a blessed child of God, and the fact that you are here with me is such an honor. So, in reality though, I'm telling you, the best top secret to attacking the enemy back is humility. Humility, humility, humility. Don't allow the enemy to plant thoughts in your brain that will make you practice vainglory. Putting God first. Conditioning your mind to setting things that are of above in the midst of storms. If you're really that type person that's just like, you want to keep it to yourself, write it down. Write it down as letters to Jesus or Lady, God or Father, and it's a good way to offer it up. Offer it up, everything. Your frustrations, your anxieties, your worries, and that's the best you can do. Humbly asking for answers. Humbly asking for certain intentions and prayers that is in your heart. And that's one of the things to do as well. when it comes to praying, I always love to do this. I humbly ask. I humbly pray. I always like to add that little humbly because it literally humbles you. As unworthy as I am, I humbly ask. Da-da-da-da-da. As unworthy as I am, I humbly pray. Da-da-da-da-da. Try that. Write it down so it conditions your whole self to be part of it. That you end up saying it too in your prayers. So keep yourself in focus and in check completely, so you're not going to fall astray. You're not going to fall discouraged. And yeah, for sure, people are going to sense this, who is this person? And just completely persecute you for who you are because of who you are. You're bubbly. You can't help it. But let it. Whenever persecution arises, just do this. Shake it off and leave it. Leave that person into God's hands and he will do a better job to humble that person in time. It's true. I've seen it and I love it because I'm at peace. And that's another thing too. Also, in practicing extreme humility is keeping yourself away from toxic people in your life. Remember that. Yes, you're going to meet a variety of people in your life, but it's the matter of selecting rightly to keep your surrounding and your whole environment in the right positive manner. So it keeps you in check. It keeps your mind clear of drama, of garbage, and gossip. It's the best way to keep yourself at peace. It's the best way to keep your faith in focus. And for sure, the best way you can do is to leave those people into God's hands to take care of. Yes, you've done what you can. But if it comes to a certain point that's not being fruitful anymore, especially with certain friendships, it's time to let them go and leave them into God's hands. Yes, for sure, pray for them. And that's what we are called to do as brothers and sisters. Right? So, without further ado, thank you so much for tuning into the podcast episode. If you lasted this long, thank you so much. I know this is like 25 minutes, but thank you. God bless. And I'll see you guys soon in my next podcast. And as I love to say in all my videos and everything, all my social media, especially at the end of my podcast, don't be afraid to 2 words of Christ. Bye. See you soon.